Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly Parsha Shiur. Thank you so much for being with us. There's a great little anecdote that I love, and it's about a rabbi who comes to a city to fundraise. You know, he's got a yeshiva back in Israel that he needs to fundraise a lot of money for, and he comes to a particular city, wherever it is, Los Angeles, California, Chicago, New York, whatever. He shows up somewhere, and he's got a lot of work to do, because he's got to go and fundraise. He's got to go raise a lot of money. So before he arrives, he arranges beforehand that a driver should come and pick him up and meet him at the airport. And he tells the driver, listen, as soon as I land, we're going to go straight. I'm only there for a couple of days, and I got a couple of very wealthy people to hit up, and I got to fundraise from them. And, meet me on the ground, and we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to go, and for a couple of days, we're going to work, and we'll take my money and go back to my yeshiva in Yisro. And the driver's like, okay, great. Fantastic. Sure enough, Monday morning at 9:00 a.m., the rabbi arrives from Israel, and the driver's there. He's there to pick him up. And they give each other shalom aleichem and aleichem shalom, and how are you? And they figure out that they're second cousins 3 times removed, of course. And this guy knows his neighbors, and he knows his neighbors, Jewish geography, everything is great. And the rabbi pulls out a piece of paper, and the rabbi says, okay, the first address we're going to is Mr. Goldbaum, and he lives in this and this address. He says to the driver, do you know where that is? The driver says, absolutely, it's maybe a 20-minute drive, not far, and off they go. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, the rabbi, the fundraiser, arrives at the home of the first balabos. And he steps out of the car, and very confidently, he strides right over to the front door, and he rings the bell. And the balabos, this Mr. Goldbaum himself, opens the door and sees the Rosh Yeshiva. And the driver is sitting in the car watching, and the next thing he sees, this man starts screaming at the rabbi, rips into him. Instead of giving him a shalom aleichem, he calls him a piece of dirt. And the driver rolls down his window just so that he can hear better what's going on. And he literally hears the balabas, he hears this businessman shout at the rabbi. He says, you're back again? I told you 2 years ago, the last time you came here, to get off my property and never to come back. I told you that if you didn't listen to me, I was going to file a restraining order against you. You're a ganef. I know you've been stealing. You're a terrible, rotten human being. Get out of here. How many times do I have to tell you, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to look at your face. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want anything to do with your yeshiva. What do I need to do to get rid of you? Go away. And the poor driver is sitting there. He's horrified. Here he thought he picked up some choshev or Rosh Yeshiva from Israel. It turns out the first door they knock on, this Mr. Goldbaum is ripping into this rabbi and calling him every name in the book and offending him and saying these horrible things. And the rabbi does not lose his cool. The rabbi looks at Mr. Goldbaum and says, look, Mr. Goldbaum, I'm here to raise money for my yeshiva. We have a budget of millions of dollars, and we need your help, and you've helped us in the past, and we need you to help us again. And the rabbi is saying it cool as a cucumber. And Mr. Goldbaum has smoke coming out of his ears. And he's like, Rabbi, I don't want to know you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Get out of here. And the rabbi doesn't lose his cool. And the rabbi doesn't get flustered. The rabbi just stands there and keeps repeating, Mr. Goldbaum, we need your help. We have a yeshiva with hundreds of students who are sitting and learning Torah all day. And the driver can't believe his eyes and his ears. This is unbelievable. For 30 minutes, the two of them are going at it. The man is screaming at the rabbi, and the rabbi very patiently and calmly and with great dignity and great respect. Every time there's a pause when the man stops shouting at him, the rabbi says to him, look, Mr. Goldbaum, we need your help, we need your support. For 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, Mr. Goldbaum looks at the rabbi and says, all right, Rabbi, how much money did I give you last time? And the rabbi says, Mr. Goldbaum, last time you were very generous. You gave us $18,000. We were hoping you would be just as generous this time, maybe even a little more. And Mr. Goldbaum says, all right, come inside. And they go inside, and the driver's afraid the rabbi is going to come out with a broken skull. Sure enough, 3 minutes later, the rabbi comes out with a very generous check, $18,000, the same he gave last time, plus another $1,800, plus 10%. And they get into the car, and the rabbi pulls out his paper, and he says to the driver, all right, the next address is, and he gives him the next address. And the driver goes, wait a second, Rabbi. Wait a second. Before we go anywhere, you need to explain to me what just happened. I don't understand. He said, this man shouted at you for 30 minutes, and then he gave you $19,800. And the rabbi goes, yes. He says, but the driver says to the rabbi, but he was shouting at you for 30 minutes. I saw you. You just stood there. You didn't lose. You didn't lose your cool. You just took it all. And in the end, he gave you the money. I don't understand. How did you know to just stand there? If somebody shouted at me like that, said the driver, I would have picked myself up and run away. Oh, the rabbi says, oh, I'm so sorry. He says, you must be confused by what you saw. He says, let me explain to you how this works. The rabbi says, I do these rounds every couple of years. And I write notes for myself. Every time I see a person, I write notes. He goes, this guy, Mr. Goldbaum, he has a very generous heart. He's a wonderful human being. He's been through a lot in his life, and he has a lot of unresolved issues. And he's got a lot that he's got to let out. The rabbi says to the driver, but I keep notes for myself. And next to this man's name, I wrote a note for myself which says, quote, he screams for half hour and then he gives very generously. He screams for half hour and then he gives very generously. So if you can just handle the half hour of screaming, you will be very well rewarded. You'll be very well rewarded for your patience and your time. The rabbi says, and I know this going in. I know this going in, that this is the way it works with this guy. So he screams for half hour and he gives, but afterwards he's very generous. He says to the driver, you've never seen this before. For you, this is some kind of great surprise. He says, for me, I've seen this many times before. I've been through it many times before. It's all just part of the program. It's just part of the program. This guy is very generous, but in order to access his very generous heart, you have to sit through half hour of being screamed at. That's the story. I like the story because it's insightful into human nature. Certain people, they're wonderful people. They really are. They're generous and they're kind and they mean well. But for whatever reason, because of things that they've been through in life, there's some layering around them. And in order to have a real conversation with them, you have to get through that type of layering. So you gotta put up with some stuff first. But if you can put up with that stuff, then there's a wonderful person behind it. It's like the joke about two Israelis, you meet any two Israelis who are really good friends. And this is not chas v'sholem intended to be disrespectful toward Israelis. It's just a certain culture, right? You meet any two Israelis who are very good friends. Two Israeli people who are very good friends, and they'll almost always tell you exactly the same story. They'll tell you, the first time that we met, we got into a bloody fight. The first time we saw each other, we were killing each other. It was in the market, it was in the store, it was in the street, it was here or there, whatever it was. We met under certain circumstances, and we locked horns and we pounded each other. Not physically, obviously, but we were berating each other. But once we got past that, actually, we became really good friends. It's kind of like a formality that you have to go through in certain cultures. We have to fight with people first, and then you can develop a relationship with them. Right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe once said, when two Jews meet, one says Shalom Aleichem, and the other one says Aleichem Shalom. Whatever you say, I say the opposite. Now that we've had our fight, now we can talk. So this rabbi, he was kind of saying the same thing he was educating the driver about human nature. This man screams for half hour. Don't take it personally. Don't get excited. It's the way he talks. It's the way he communicates. But once he's finished getting it out of his system, once he's finished his reacting that way, being triggered half hour later, he'll be very generous, no problem. It's just part of the broader picture. It's just part of the broader plan. All right, why am I talking about this? I'll tell you. This Shabbos is, of course, the great Parsha of Matan Torah. Parsha Yisro. Hashem gives the Torah to the Jewish people. Oh, gavaldik, unbelievable. Now, we know, of course, that this experience of Matan Torah, Hashem giving the Torah, is compared to a wedding. B'yoyim Chasunosai, says the Medrash Zu Matan Torah, God and the Jewish people got married. He hung the mountain over their heads because that was a very elaborate form of a chuppah, a separate shiur. But be it as it may, it was a moment of bliss and happiness and excitement and really spiritual intimacy, actually, between Hashem and the Jewish people. Unbelievable. The experience was so powerful. The Jewish people expired. You all know the story and you all know the Medrashim. All right. Now, I think that if you stop a Yid, a frum Yid, a Jew who learns Torah, you stop him on the street, and you ask him, how long did this utopian state of bliss in the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people, how long did it last? Right? So anybody who studies Torah will tell you that they know that it lasted for 40 days. 40 days later, the Jewish people worshipped the Egel Azov, the golden calf. They worshipped idols. They violated the very mitzvah that Hashem commanded them to do, the very mitzvah that Hashem commanded them, the very mitzvah that they heard directly from Hashem. They violated it 40 days later. All right. The story actually of the worshipping of the golden calf, is not in this week's Parsha. It's in a couple of Parshas in Parshas Kisisa. But anyways, but I'm just saying the conventional wisdom, the conventional way of understanding the story is that for 40 days it lasted. For 40 days it lasted, which, as far as marriages go, 40 days is not that bad, right? To get married to somebody, 40 days of bliss. All right, some of us merit a little more, some of us merit a little less. But the first fight between the married couple at some point happens. And let's say for the sake of this conversation, at that point, the honeymoon stage is over. Honeymoon stage is over. All right, maybe you can argue 40 days is particularly short, granted. All right. Sometimes people fast track things. Okay. But my point is that the conventional way of understanding it is that Matan Torah was this great moment of ecstasy, of spiritual connection. I mean, Hashem gave the Torah to the Jewish people and the mitzvahs, and it was this unbelievable moment of perfection. And it didn't last long. But as long as it lasted, it lasted. That's the conventional way of understanding. And it turns out it's entirely false. It turns out it's entirely false. And the seeds for what happened with the golden calf actually were planted at the time of the giving of the Torah. At the time of the giving of the Torah, there was already an awareness that this is not going to last. A golden calf will be worshipped, and the first luchas will be broken. All right, now what in heaven's name am I saying? Okay, so let's back up a little bit. There's a Medrash Tanchuma, actually a pretty similar teaching is taught in the Zohar, but it's based on the Medrash Tanchuma. The Medrash Tanchuma contrasts the first set of luchas with the second set of luchas. And the Medrash says like this, listen to this. The Medrash says the reason why the first set of luchas were broken is because there was an ayin hara. Any of you grew up with family members very concerned about ayin hara? Right, my grandmother, may she live and be well. Every time she's concerned about ayin hara, still goes tu. Excuse me. Tu, can ayin hara? On ayin hara. Says the Tanchuma, the reason why the first set of luchas were broken is because Sholto Behem Ayin Hora. And Ayin Hora ruled over them, and that's why they didn't last. What in heaven's name does that mean? How did an Ayin Hora get into the first set of luchas? Haluchas Maaseh Elokim Heim made by Hashem. The writing was written by Hashem. How does an Ayin Hora get into that? Says the Medrash, an Ayin Hora got into the first set of luchas because there was so much publicity and so much fanfare around the giving of the first luchas. I mean the lightning and the thunder and the miracles and Hashem's voice and the Jewish people's soul expires, and the Gemara elaborates on this. Every word that Hashem says, the whole world shook, and the world was filled with fragrances. The whole world, even the Goyim, were aware of what was going on. In fact, as you all know, they got so scared that they ran to their prophet. The Goyim ran to their prophet. Who was their prophet? Bilam. And they said to Bilam, what's going on? Bilam said, you want to know what's going on? Hashem oiz la'amo yitain. Hashem is giving power to his people, giving them the Torah. They said to Bilam, are the Jews going to use this to destroy us? Bilam said, don't worry, Hashem yavarech esam v'shalom. Hashem blesses his people with peace. This tool will not be used against us. But the point that Tanchuma makes is there was so much fanfare, so much publicity, so much, it was so much in everybody's face that there was an Ayin Hora, right? The first rule of Ayin Hora is don't make a big deal out of things. You make a big deal out of things, you're going to attract negative attention. The first luchas was pushed in the face of the whole world. Says the Medrash, it didn't last, it broke. The second set of luchas was given betzino, quietly. No tumult, no lightning, no thunder, nobody fainted, there was no loud booming voices. Shashtil. Says the Medrash. The second set of luchas lasted because there was no Ayin Hora. It was given quietly. This is the general gist of the Medrash. Now, the point of the Medrash is, of course, to educate us on the great quality of tznius, on the importance of being humble and modest and keeping things quiet, not being showy and flashy. If you've acquired wisdom, there's no need to flaunt it. If you've acquired wealth, there's no need to push it in other people's faces. If you have, Baruch Hashem, your health, and if you have been blessed with children, and if you've been blessed with healthy children and a healthy family, don't shout and scream. Don't make a big deal. Shh. On a simple level, that's the purpose of the Medrash. Shh. Don't go around making big announcements. Go to shul, sit down, daven, thank Hashem, say Yashikoyach L'Bono Shloim, go home to your family, dress like a mensch, act like a mensch, walk like a mensch, talk like a mensch. Don't attract unnecessary attention. The first luchas attracted unnecessary attention and they got smashed. The second luchas, betzina, quiet, stiller, hey, nobody said anything. If you didn't know what was done, the goyim didn't come running. If you didn't know that it happened, you wouldn't know. And the second set of luchas lasted. All right, this is the Medrash. A beautiful Medrash. Says Rav Soloveitchik, asks Rav Soloveitchik, he says, I don't understand. It's what you call a Yiddish a klotz kasha. I don't understand, asks Rav Soloveitchik. What, Hashem didn't know how Ayin Hora works? Who made all this tumult and all this fanfare around the giving of the first luchas? Whose decision was it that there should be lightning and thunder and the whole world should shake and tremble? Whose decision was that? Hashem's. So Hashem didn't know that this is going to attract an Ayin Hora. God doesn't understand that when you get some kind of a blessing, you just take it quietly and go sit in the corner and mind your business. God doesn't understand the mind your own business rule. Asks Rav Soloveitchik, what kind of a Medrash saying? That it was a bad idea on Hashem's part to make such a great commotion around the giving of the first luchas? If Hashem would have realized, he would have done it quietly. Really? Or in Rav Soloveitchik's words, Did Hashem not know that if you give the first luchos with great fanfare, it's not going to last? So why did he do it that way? That's Rav Soloveitchik's question. If I may, humbly, I'd like to add another question. The first luchos were broken because there was, the Medrash says, because there was an ayin hora on them, because they were given with lightning and thunder and tremendous commotion. What? Really? The first luchos were broken because there was an ayin hora, because of all the noise and tumult? The first luchos were broken because the Jewish people worshiped the golden calf. And Moshe Rabbeinu came down from the mountain and he was holding the luchos and he saw what the people did. And he smashed the luchos because he felt the people weren't worthy, because he felt that to have these luchos, because he was concerned that if he did give them the luchos, there would be tremendous repercussions, etc. That's the reason why the first luchos were. All of a sudden, a new story. The Medrash says the first luchos were broken because there was tremendous commotion. There was lightning and thunder at the time that Hashem. So what does this mean according to the Medrash? That if there was no lightning and thunder by the first luchos, then what? Then Moshe would not have broken them when the Jews worshipped the golden calf. Very difficult to understand. Let's keep going. One of the very famous questions on the Aser Sedibros, and the Ten Commandments, given, of course, at Matan Torah, is why by the first two commandments, Anoichi and Lo Yiyeh, Hashem speaks in the singular. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha and Lo Yiyeh Elokim Acher. It's discussed by the commentaries. In Hebrew, when you speak to a group of people, you say, Anoichi Hashem Elokeichem. I am your God. You're in the plural. When you tell a group of people, you should not worship idols, you should not have idols, you say, Lo Yiyeh Lochem Elokim Acherim. When you speak to an individual, you say, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, or Lo Yiyeh Locha. If you're speaking to 2 or 3 million people, it's grammatically incorrect to say, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, or Lo Yiyeh Locha Elokim Acherim. All right, this is a very, very, very famous question. And there's actually a beautiful answer for it. There's a beautiful answer for it. And the beautiful answer, Chazal say, is because the Eibush Hashem wanted that every single Jew, although there were 3 million Jews standing in Matan Torah, Hashem wanted every single Jew to say, Elai u'medaber, that Hashem is speaking to me. Hashem wanted every Jew to take it personally, and not to say, oh, there's 3 million of us, right? Probably there's some rabbis and Rosh Hashivas and Tzaddikim here who will learn Torah, and Hashem means them. No, Hashem spoke to every Jew individual. B'loshen yochid, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Beautiful answer. Rashi gives another answer. Wild. Rashi says there's another reason why Hashem said it in the singular. Both. Anochi Hashem Elokecha and Lo Yiyeh Elokim Acherim. You know why? Says Rashi, to equip Moshe, to arm Moshe with a defense for what to say 40 days later when the Jews would worship the golden calf. You can look it up. It's in Rashi on the words Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Actually, don't have the Chumash open in front of me today. You'll forgive me, but you'll take my word for it. It's right there. Rashi on the words Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Rashi says these words. That Hashem said it in the singular to equip Moshe with ammunition, with pischon peh, with the ability to open his mouth to defend the Jews when they would worship the golden calf. Now, what's one thing got to do with the other? What's Hashem saying it in the singular have to do with defending the Jews when they worship the Egel Azov? Says Rashi, when the Jews worshipped Avodah Zarah, Moshe came to Hashem and said, the Jews worshipped Avodah Zarah. You never told them not to. You, Hashem, never instructed them not to. Hashem says, excuse me? I never told them not to. I came down on Har Sinai and I said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Shalom Aleichem. I'm God. Don't worship any other gods besides me. Don't even have them. Don't even own them. Don't even make them. Nothing. Moshe said, yeah, but you said it in the singular. You said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. You said, Lo Yiyeh Elokim Acherim. So Moshe says, you were speaking to me, not to the Jewish people. Lomo Hashem yecher apcho be'amecha, Moshe would cry, why are you, Hashem, angry at your people? You never spoke to them. You said it in the singular. You said it to me, not to them. That's what Rashi says. Of all the things that need to be understood about that particular Rashi, the most amazing part is what Rashi's actually saying. Which what Rashi's actually saying is that that's the reason why Hashem gave the Aseres HaDibros in the singular. That's why Hashem articulated this command in the singular tone, to give Moshe an argument that he would later use 40 days later to defend the Jews after they worshipped idols. In stronger words, as Hashem comes down on the mountain and looks at every Jew in the face and says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, as Hashem is saying it, Hashem already knows that in 40 days they're going to worship idols. And Hashem is already preparing a defense for Moshe Rabbeinu to defend them. Now, the defense is very difficult to understand. Because everybody knows that when Hashem said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Hashem didn't just mean Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem means Hashem meant all the Jews. So the defense is difficult to understand. Maybe if we have time, we'll get into that today. If not, not. But what I'm really after here is a much deeper point than that. The deeper point is, however you're going to explain what the defense is, the idea that Hashem is providing that defense for the worshiping of the golden calf at the time that he's saying, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It's kind of like Hashem is saying, look, it's like that story where the rabbi says, look, this is the way he works. He screams for a half hour and then he gives. It's like Hashem is saying, look, I know I'm only giving you one mitzvah, and I know that that mitzvah is crystal clear, but I know that you won't keep it. And I know that I'm going to have to forgive you for it. Or I know that there's going to have to be some defense for you when you violate this one mitzvah that you're hearing from me directly. And so here Hashem says, I'm giving it to you right now. As I'm saying the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm articulating those words in such a way that they can be used as a defense for you violating these very words that I'm saying. Wild concept. But the most important part of it is that it blows a hole through this whole theory that we have, that 40 days the Jewish people and Hashem had this blissful honeymoon-like stage. And then 40 days later, they worshipped Avodah Zarah. Turns out it's a Baba Maisa. Hashem knew about it at the time of the giving of the Torah. Next point. The Gemara says that after Hashem gave the Torah to the Jewish people, the Satan went looking for the Torah. First the Satan asked Hashem where it is. Then Hashem sort of sent the Satan on a bit of a wild goose chase. The Satan looked all over. Eventually the Satan went to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu at first seems to deny that he's the one who has the Torah. Agan Samaisa. In the end, Hashem says to Moshe, why are you denying that you have the Torah? Moshe Rabbeinu says, how can I take credit for it? Hashem says, since you're so humble, the whole Torah will be called by your name, etc. The Gemara that discusses this is Masechta Shabbos, Daf Peches. There's a Tosfos, a commentary on the Gemara. And he asks what seems like a balabatish kasha. He asks what seems like a sort of practical question. Tosfos says, I don't understand. The whole world knew when Hashem gave the Torah to the Jews, right? We just quoted a few minutes ago. The Medrash says the Goyim went running to Bilam to ask him what's going on. That means the sound, the sights, the experience was so powerful, the whole world was aware of it. So what does it mean, Tosfos asks, what does it mean that the Satan didn't know? What do you mean the Satan didn't know? He came looking for the Torah afterwards. I mean, Bilam knew that Hashem gave the Torah to the Jews. The Goyim knew that Hashem gave the Torah to the Jews. And the Satan didn't know? How could where was the Satan playing chess? I mean, how did he how did the Satan miss the entire experience of Matan Torah? Tosfos asks this question. All right, Tosfos quotes a bunch of Medrashim. The point of the answer is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, intentionally distracted the Satan during the experience of the giving of the Torah. He sent him, I don't know, to go and do something. Hashem intentionally created a vacuum, a corner, where somewhere in the spiritual universe, where the Satan could exist without awareness that the Torah is being given to the Jews. It was done intentionally. That's why afterwards the Satan comes looking to see where the Torah is, because at the time Hashem put him, so to speak, in a corner where he wouldn't be aware. And that was the only place that wasn't aware. Everywhere else, the whole entire world, all physical and spiritual worlds knew, but the corner of the Satan, no. Why? Because Hashem knew, says Tosfos, quoting from a Medrash, Hashem knew that the Satan would not allow him to give the Torah to the Jews. Open your hearts for a moment. Hashem knew that the Satan would not allow him to give the Torah to the Jews. Why not? Because the Satan would say, Rabbeinu Shalom, you're going to give the Torah to the Jews. In 40 days, they're going to worship the Egel. Don't do it. So in order to give the Torah to the Jews anyways, Hashem distracted the Satan. Now again, requires a tremendous amount of explanation. What do all these things mean? But again, the point I'm after for now is that what that really means is that at the time of the giving of the Torah, there's already awareness that this is not going to last for 40 days. For 40 days. The Jewish people will keep the mitzvah, and then they'll worship the Egel Azov. The Satan knows it. Hashem knows it. In fact, Hashem, well, the Satan doesn't know it, but Hashem knows that the Satan does know it. The Satan doesn't know that Hashem is giving the Torah to the Jews, but the Satan knows that in 40 days they're going to worship. And the Satan and Hashem doesn't want to have this conversation with the Satan, so distracts him. In order to give the Torah to the Jews anyways, who, as it turns out, will violate in 40 days the one mitzvah given by Hashem. So let's review. Hashem is giving the 10 commandments, expressing it in the singular, doing it specifically, intentionally, explicitly, without the Satan's knowledge. In other words, not because he's not informing the Satan. Everybody was informed. Hashem specifically creates a spiritual chamber in which there's a vacuum of awareness so that the Satan can exist but not be aware of the experience of the giving of the Torah, so that the Satan won't stop him. Because the Satan is aware and Hashem is aware that in 40 days the Jews are going to worship the golden calf. And that's why Tosfos concludes, after the giving of the Torah, the Satan is looking for the Torah. Can't find it anywhere. And yet Hashem gives it anyways. Let's add one more question. What actually really did the giving of the Torah accomplish or achieve? Right? This is another very famous question. Before Matan Torah, the Jews were already studying Torah. Right? You know about this. Before Hashem gave the Torah to the Jews, they were already studying the Torah. In the days of Avraham Avinu, they were studying the Yeshiva. In the days of Shem Ve'ever, in the other Rishon were studying Torah. The Gemara goes so far as to say that Avraham Avinu even kept all the mitzvahs, even Erev Tavshilin, whatever that means. I mean, it means he kept Erev Tavshilin. But why is that specifically the example of the Gemara? Also a good question. So that means the Jews were aware, and the Jews studied Torah, and they kept mitzvahs. Right? There's a famous medrash that says that when Moshe Rabbeinu was a youngster, Paroi made him kind of like the CEO of his affairs. Right? He was the adopted Moshe Rabbeinu before he was chased away, before he was banished from Egypt. Moshe was the adopted grandson of Paroi, grew up in the palace. The Medrash says that Paroi made Moshe the CEO of his affairs. And Moshe found himself in position where he was in charge of his own brothers, the Jewish people, the slaves. So the Medrash says he came to Paroi one day and he said to Paroi, you're making a mistake. By making the Jews work 7 days a week, you're making a mistake. Nobody can produce good quality work if they're working all the time. You have to give them 1 day off. Paroi agreed. As I state the Medrash. Paroi agreed. So Moshe says to Paroi, give them Shabbos off. And Paroi did. And the Jewish people had Shabbos off thanks to Moshe Rabbeinu already in Mitzrayim. The Medrash concludes, what were they doing? What did they do all Shabbos? The Medrash says they had Megillos, they had scrolls with Torah that had been passed on to them by their ancestors, by Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and they were sitting and studying it on Shabbos. So the Jews learned Torah and kept mitzvahs before Matan Torah. It's not like one day Hashem arrives down and says, guess what, everybody? I got a Torah for you. Everybody knew about this before. Guess what, everybody? I got 613 mitzvahs. Avraham Avinu was keeping them all already. So again, this is not my question. This is a very famous question. So what really did Matan Torah accomplish, and what actually changed here? In terms of, it accomplished many things, but I want to focus on one in particular. So what really does Matan Torah change if the Jewish people were already learning Torah and fulfilling mitzvahs beforehand? Okay. Excuse me. I want to actually really make one point, and then with Hashem's help, I want to try to answer all the questions. Let's review them. Let's review the questions quickly. Question number one, why did Hashem give the luchos with so much fanfare if he knew that the fanfare would create an ayin hora and the first luchos would be broken? Question two, why does the Medrash say that the luchos were broken because of an ayin hora if the real reason the luchos were broken is because the Jewish people worshipped the Egel Azov? Question three, why is Hashem wording the Aseres HaDibros in such a way that that can be used to defend the Jews when they worship the golden calf? Isn't this a mitzvah to not worship the golden calf? Why the incentive to give? Imagine, I give you an instruction not to cheat on your spouse, but I give it to you in such a way that if you do cheat on your spouse, you can be defended. And I'm telling you that at the time that I'm telling you don't cheat on your spouse. Why would Hashem word it that way? And Tosfos goes so far as to say that Hashem wouldn't have been able to have this argument with the Satan. So Hashem creates a vacuum for the Satan, where the Satan won't raise this issue. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of, what's the wisdom of this? Really, we already know at the time of the giving of the Torah that the Jews are going to worship the golden calf. And finally, what really does Matan Torah actually accomplish if the Jews study Torah and fulfill mitzvahs beforehand? All right. I want to focus on one primary idea. I got literally just a couple of minutes left, and I want to use it to tie up these loose ends. From a strictly halachic perspective, Matan Torah, again, even from just a strictly technical perspective, Matan Torah accomplished Geirus. Matan Torah was a mass conversion. Hashem, on one fine day, on the day of the giving of the Torah, Hashem converted 3 million individuals from a halachic perspective, from non-Jews to Jews. And then the Gemara says this. Then the Gemara says, in other words, their existence changed. There's an expression in the Gemara, Gershin is Gayer Kekotten Shenoilad, that the convert is like a newborn baby. They become a new existence. From a halachic perspective, the Jews were created anew at the time of the giving of the Torah. That, by the way, is the deeper meaning of this idea. It says their souls left their bodies and they were brought back down. Again, the idea is that their existence post Matan Torah is not this. It's a completely new existence. Yes, they may have studied the same Torah. They may have even fulfilled the same mitzvahs. but it's like when a person is studying to become a convert, right? So there's 2 years of preparation before a person converts. What happens? Before the conversion, you also study Torah and you also fulfill mitzvahs, but you're not Jewish. Once you go through the conversion, you continue studying the same Torah and actually fulfilling the same mitzvahs. And you do the same mitzvahs exactly as you do beforehand. And the convert has to fulfill the mitzvahs before they convert because they have to get into the habit. They have to know what to do. But until the conversion, they're not Jewish. After the moment of conversion, they're Jewish. So the halacha says the moment of Matan Torah was mass conversion. 3 million Jews converted, became Jews. All right. Says the Gemara, at the time of Matan Torah, the Jewish people were on a tremendously powerful spiritual level. He says the Gemara, they feared Hashem. So how could they possibly worship the Egel Azov 40 days later? I'm going to read this to you because it's so astounding. Says the Gemara, the Jews, I'll give you the literal translation first. The Jews were not suited to perform that deed with the golden calf. Perhaps with a little poetic license, I would even add and say the Jews were not even capable. The Jews were not capable. At that moment, when they stood under the impact of Matan Torah, they were actually incapable on their own of sinning with the golden calf. So what happened? Rashi, in explaining the Gemara, says, quote, Gzeiras melech hoya. This was a decree that came from Hashem. Hashem decreed it upon them that they should worship. Hashem made it happen. The Gemara makes us jump out of our seats. Why? And if Hashem did make it happen, why is Hashem so upset with them when they do it? All right, so the commentaries explain it doesn't mean that Hashem forced them. Hashem never took away their free choice. Hashem just brought them to it. But I want to get to the point. The point is, the Gemara makes it clear that the Rebbeinu Shalom coordinated the experience of the worshiping of the golden calf 40 days after he gave them the Torah. Why? Quote, Liton Pischa Pele Bali Tshuva. So that, says the Gemara, for the rest of eternity, if a Jew ever sins, either an individual Jew or a group of Jews, the Jew should never say, I'm forlorn. The Jew should never say, I sinned so terribly, I did such a bad aveir, I cannot do tshuva. Because no matter how bad the aveir that you did is, it can never, ever be worse than the Jewish people worshiping the Egel Azov 40 days after the giving of the Torah. And if Hashem forgave them, Hashem can certainly forgive you. No more excuses. From now on, for all eternity, no matter how badly a Jew has soiled himself spiritually, he should never get despondent. Because he can always say, if those Jews did tshuva, then so can I. You can look up this Gemara if you'd like. It's in Avodah Zarah, Daf Daled Amud Beis. Again, the point that I want for today from this Gemara, the Gemara is saying that the Rebbeinu Shalom coordinated this. Hashem was pulling the strings like a master puppeteer from somewhere up in heaven, making sure or putting the Jews' hands on the button that they would sin 40 days after the giving of the Torah, so that once they would do tshuva for all eternity, we'd now say, look at that. No Jews barred from doing tshuva. Even when Hashem says, God forbid, that he wants to destroy the Jews can still do tshuva. Proof? Look at the Egel Azov. 40 days after the giving of the Torah, they worshipped and Hashem forgave them anyways. Okay. So what does that mean? Why is it so important to make this point? And why specifically at the time of the giving of the Torah? When you take a person and you convert them, a non-Jew, let's say, wants to convert and become a Yid. So they train for 2 years, they study, they practice, etc. And then at some point, the moment comes, the individual goes to the mikveh, and they toivel, and they come out, and they're now a Jew. They're now a Yid. What's the message to this ger, to this convert? What do we tell the convert? We tell him, you're now a member of the team, right? You're now a member of the Jewish people. What we're really telling them is, you're now part of Hashem's chosen nation. You now have a different type of relationship with Hashem. You're now, so to speak, like like the Jewish people are referred to as Hashem's children. You now have a connection with Hashem, actually, which is unbreakable. It's unbreakable. What we really tell the person who converts, we tell them, listen, you've trained for 2 years. You've studied and you've practiced. It so happens that because we have a Yetzer Hara, nobody is perfect. We have ups and downs. It so happens that because we all have our own challenges, you also have moments of weakness and moments when you'll fail. These moments of failure, these moments of sin, not only will they not weaken your connection to Hashem, but they'll make it even stronger. Because there's a possibility of doing tshuva. And doing tshuva means making it even stronger than it was before. And that really, really is the message of Matan Torah. Matan Torah, the day Hashem came down on the mountain and told the Jewish people, you're my chosen people. You're my children. You and I, Hashem said to the Jewish people in Matan Torah, you and I are getting married. What's marriage? What's marriage? A never-ending honeymoon. In the movies, that's what a marriage is. In real life, that's not what it is. What is marriage? Marriage is a lot of work. Marriage is honesty. Marriage is fessing up when you've done things wrong and when you've made a mess. Marriage requires humility. But most importantly, the message of marriage is that it's eternal. And through every challenge and through every difficulty and through every pitfall that we fall into, we emerge much stronger. Hashem came to the Jewish people on the day of Matan Torah and said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, lo yeh lecha elokim acherim. The Jews were so excited, their souls left their bodies. Hashem said to them all, calm down. You have no idea what I'm talking about. You're finite human beings, and I'm giving you an neshama, I'm converting you, I'm giving you a Yiddish soul that will last forever. A limited being cannot understand infinity, can't grasp infinity. Of course their souls popped out of their body. Well, what do you mention? You can't put infinity into something finite, it bursts. So the Jews were so excited, they were on such a spiritual high. God was, so to speak, sitting up in heaven and laughing. You're so excited, Hashem says to the Jews, you have no idea what's going on here. What is really going on here? What is really going on here is something godly and eternal beyond the grasp of a human being. Hashem says, I'm going to give you a neshama that's capable of things that you have no idea. But don't worry, says Hashem, because I'm going to teach you and you're going to learn. And the process of learning, unfortunately, is sometimes painful. Why is learning painful? Because like in intellectual learning, where in order to learn about a deeper, higher reality, you have to let go of everything you've understood until now and grasp a much deeper level of understanding. So it is in our own relationship with Hashem. It's so layered and leveled, it's so infinite that we have no perception how high it goes. So Hashem says, look, today is the day of Matan Torah. I say to every single Jew individually, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm your God. I'm going to put an neshama into you that is eternal and that is unbreakable and that is pure godliness. And then in 40 days from now, I'm going to coordinate, says Hashem, that you worship an Egel Azov. And then what? And then you do tshuva. And I'm going to gift you, says Hashem, with a gift that is beyond anything you've ever experienced. It's called tshuva. It's the ability to rectify and rebuild and climb out of whatever godly experience you've had until now and go into and touch the divine and go into something deeper and greater and higher. The Satan doesn't understand it. The Satan can't. The Satan isn't capable. But you, Hashem says to the Jewish people, you are. And this is a process that will be discovered through the course of Jewish history over and over and over again. In every generation, it'll be discovered in its own way. Every time Jews will go through a challenge, either physical or spiritual, and emerge triumphant, it will be one more display, one more part of the educational process where the Jews learn about themselves. We ourselves have no idea who we are, but we learn. And it all begins with the story of the Egel Azov. Based on this principle, let's try to answer the questions. We asked, question number one, if the first luchas were destroyed because of ayin hara, then why did Hashem give it in such a way? Why did Hashem give it in a way that there would be an ayin hara and this would eventually destroy the luchas? The answer is, Hashem already knew at the giving of the Torah that this wasn't going to last. Hashem knew that this wasn't going to last and it couldn't last. Why not? Because the Jewish people needed to go through an Egel Azov. They needed to go through a moment of weakness. They needed to go through a moment of anguish in order to get to the concept of tshuva. And so, yes, Hashem did it on purpose. Just like Hashem said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and planted in the very giving of the Ten Commandments a platform for the Jews to be defended when they would worship. What was the defense? Well, the defense was exactly that. The defense was that no matter where a Jew goes and no matter how, the Jew, there's an expression in the Chabad teachings from the Chabad Rebbe's, there's an expression that says, a Jew neither wants nor is truly capable of separating themselves from Hashem. That was the gift of Matan Torah. It's kind of like those of us who have little children, right? Those of us who have little children, sometimes we have to discipline them, right? So when we have to discipline our little children, the little children get upset with us, right? And they close their eyes and they say, I don't want to look at you. I don't want to look at you, Tati. You're not giving me chocolate before dinner. I don't want to see you. I'm so upset with you. I never want to talk to you again. And then a little while later, they eat dinner and they feel much better and they come to you and they hug you and they kiss you. Tati, Tati, thank you. Thank you so much. Did the father not know that he would break the kid's heart by not letting the 3-year-old kid have chocolate before dinner? Of course he did. So why did he do it? Well, first reason he did it is to protect the child, of course. But even as far as the relationship is concerned, because the father sees in his relationship with his child much more than the child sees. The child doesn't see it. The father wishes he could save his child from heartbreak so he'd never have to experience a difficult day in life. The father wishes he could save his child from that. The reality is that you can't. So what's the father do? The father tries to give his child unconditional love. Here it is, my dear. No matter what you experience, I'll always be here with you. The child says, thank you very much. But the child has no idea what the father's talking about until the harsh realities of life hit. Oh! And then the child starts to figure out what it means to have an unconditionally loving father. Then the child appreciates it. Those who don't know what it means to work don't know what it means to rest. Those who've never experienced pain don't know what it means, don't know the value of being pain-free. And those, Rahman al-Islam, who've never had sadness in their life, don't really know what happiness is either. That's the way Hashem made us. Until the Jews tasted what it means to be separated, God forbid, even if just superficially, they'd never know the depth of their own connection to Hashem. It was discovered through tshuva, and the seeds for this were planted at the time of the giving of the Torah, when Hashem took these 3 million people, converted them, and said, "You're now all newborn babies." A whole new life begins, a whole new existence. Yes, you'll study the same Torah and fulfill the same mitzvahs, but you people are completely different, Hashem says. Now for all of eternity, you're mine. And like a parent, a loving mother, and a loving father carries their children through life, so the Rabbeinu Shalom carries us in his loving embrace through every challenge of life, protecting us, shielding us, and always educating us and empowering us. In the end, the experience of Matan Torah was not just to give the Jews their soul, but was to empower them to discover its own depth and its own true meaning. And for this reason, Hashem, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Hashem saw to it that they would go through a dark spiritual place, because the tshuva that they discover through it fills them with joy and with light and happiness in a way that they would otherwise never understand. All right. May Hashem bless us all with a wonderful Shabbos. It is a very special Shabbos, Shabbos of the giving of the Torah, and with nachas and with gesund. And please God, through every spiritual, we should experience no hardships in life, but through every spiritual challenge that we go through, like with the story of the Egel Azov, we emerge even stronger and even deeper connected to Hashem. Have a wonderful Shabbos.